The Cognitive Capability of Mind in Consciousness by Venerable Rung Ruang Papas Saro, Dr. Rung Ruang Lim Chupatipa. The Buddha admired that a mind has special 4 properties to cope with the world in such a way as follows.
The mind has the 4 special cognitive capabilities to acknowledge what is happening in the world as follows. 1. Life is an execution of a stream of consciousness, and at each instance of having consciousness, when having consciousness to fetch the object of consciousness, then the mind will acknowledge on the object of consciousness, reflecting on what is happening around in the world and how to respond to the world. This capability is called the element of acknowledgement. Note, this is an explanation on how a consciousness functioning in mind processing. 2. As the mind continuously processes in a stream of consciousness, the mind will accumulate, record, and memorize all data as the cognition of experiences in life. The wholesome mind will lead to good doing which is benefitable to life, while the unwholesome mind will lead to evil doing which is harmful to life. This information on individuality is called memory of karma. Note, the law of karma defines the conservation of karma in associated with an individual and the world, saying wholesome doing will collectively result in good return, while unwholesome doing will collectively result in bad return. 3. The accumulation of experiences or karmas will develop behaviors and habits. Unwholesome mind and doing of karma will lead to uninstructed cognition, while wholesome mind and doing of karma will lead to instructed cognition. Therefore, it is very essential to study on the truths of life within nature by establishing mindfulness, performing insight observation to see the dharma of life. Then the mind will initiate introspective learning for cognitive development, which is called wisdom. Note, clearly, the wisdom is not a mantra of supernatural power, but it is a result from the cognition of introspective learning by performing an insight observation. 4. After an instructed cognition is developed, then this wisdom on dharma, nature, can be accompanied with mindfulness to respond to an arising unwholesome. After all the unwholesome mind are completely abandoned by wisdom, then the mind will be purified and liberated, and this is called the way to make an end of suffering in life.
The concept of the acknowledge element of mind is very important in Buddhism, because it explains how while being conscious the mind will know and understand what is happening in the world. Moreover, it explains the function of mindfulness when being conscious. Therefore, establishing mindfulness is simply an activation of acknowledge element of mind to function to be aware of what the object of consciousness is about. The mindfulness can fetch either an internal object of consciousness in terms of the one in the past by minorizing, or the one in the future by expectation, or an external object of consciousness directly from the world as what is really happening in the present moment. Therefore, by establishing mindfulness in the present moment, the mind will switch from an internal thinking, no matter it is in the past or the future, and focus in the present moment on an external object of consciousness from the world. This shifting technique on the current unwholesome thought in thinking process is the key to resolve both mental problems of depression and anxiety. In addition, the Buddha encouraged that if we make further study in the insight observation on the mind processing acting as a life, then this quality of the acknowledge element of mind can be developed through the life experiences in introspective learning to gain wisdom of cognition to make an end of suffering in life. This description of the quality of mind guarantees a promising success in Buddhist studies that the mind liberation is achievable, and the way to make an end of suffering is doable. The Buddha emphasized the importance of studying on the truths of life within nature for mind development. That is, life is an act of a stream of consciousness. The Buddha discovered that a consciousness is a natural phenomenon that arose and faded away within a short period, sort of a rhythm like an EEG, electroencephalography, at the central nervous system. A consciousness caused varieties of states of mind such as feeling, perception, volitional formations functioning as a mind processing, as described in the process of dependent origination by the law of cause and effect. As a result, a life was just a mind processing with an individual karma of information of individuality. In Buddhist philosophy, a consciousness works in a repeated execution of the mind fetching an object of consciousness, then to be aware of what it is, and then to release that object of consciousness before fetching a new object of consciousness, which can be compared like a person sleeping under a mango tree. When the person wakes up from sleeping, then eating a mango, and then falling asleep after eating. Later, the person wakes up again and repeatedly eating a mango and falling asleep repeatedly. In this situation, the waking up and sleeping of a person can be compared like an arising and fading consciousness, and the eaten mango can be compared like an object of consciousness. In addition, a routine of a person waking up is like eating a mango, and then falling into sleeping in a stream of consciousness. It is very astonishing that what we are doing in daily life, each of them is just a composition of these little activities of mind processing. In 2003, Richard Davidson and Antoine Lutz conducted a very interesting scientific study by using the fMRI to investigate on the brain activities of several Buddhist monks with many years of mindfulness meditation experiences. The objective of this study is not limited on the curiosity on the differences of the brain activities between the baseline ordinary persons and the well-trained Buddhist monks, but also on how the Buddhist practice will enhance the quality of mind performances. This study revealed an insight mechanism of how a consciousness functions within the nervous system. The consciousness occurs in everywhere of the central nervous system. There is no specific location of the consciousness. Richard Davidson and Antoine Lutz noticed a unique pattern of signal processing of consciousness consisting of 4 successive stages in series as follows: mind wandering, awareness or being mindfulness, reorientation of attention, and sustaining attention or focusing or concentration, respectively. As we can see that the mindfulness and concentration are typically attributes as key components in the consciousness, and the quality of consciousness in functioning depends on the quality and the development of mindfulness and concentration. In Buddhism, the Buddha explained that the mind must be mindfulness with concentration, having the continuation of mindfulness during performing the insight observation. The specific areas of neurons involved with these associated conditions. This study reveals a discovery that in each round of having an arising and fading away of consciousness, the mind will begin in the first step of a mind-wandering state, which is sometimes defined as a pre-consciousness, that is, being in a state of readiness to capture any new incoming signal. Then the mind will be in awareness, as the Buddha described the mind to be an element of acknowledgement, which can be accomplished by establishing mindfulness to be aware of the incoming object of consciousness, while releasing the previous object of consciousness and switching to absorb it with sustaining attention or focusing. After ending with focusing, meditation, before repeating in the next round of consciousness. This discovery is very encouraging because it demonstrates that firstly, those monks with many years of mindfulness meditation practice really exhibit very precise steps of consciousness. Secondly, both mindfulness and concentration are already parts of consciousness. However, without having sufficient practice to improve the quality to be purified mindfulness with concentration, then the mind can be developed in performing its functions. Therefore, it is very essential to improve the quality of life by practicing the mindfulness meditation, so-called the Buddhist meditation, as a basis of all kinds of mental therapy for mind development.